So that was the year. That's my charges. Good morning.
That's where we're at in life. Okay, let's get going this morning. Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Paranoid about answering. Good morning, everyone. How are we? Good morning. I'm good. Hi. Photos taken. Thank you. I'll sign that. Yeah.
I'll double check.
You're great. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good. We will start with gratitude. And we'll echo. I don't know why, but we will start with gratitude. Someone connected with a mic. You want to mute your mic on one of these laptops here, perhaps?
Allison.
Okay, we got it. So good morning. As always, we will start with gratitudes, and there's a ton to be thankful for. I will start. It seems like we're like controlling the weather exactly perfect lately, right? It's like I wake up, it's like rain, but then the day is sunny. It seems like the last 2 weeks have been, hi Greg. It's been amazing. So I'm grateful for that. Anyone else have a gratitude? And we start with gratitude to help with our mindset, to make sure we start in a place of positivity. Tyler Tucker.
Much like you, great weather, baseball season. I'm coaching both my kids, T-ball and baseball. So the schedule's really full, but go from one to the other, go straight from work to baseball practice for Tristan, and then straight from there to T-ball practice for Cora. And it's just a ride. I love this time.
What time do you get home after all that?
7:30, 7:45.
Long day when you started 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What you got, my friend?
Kind of remind me with the baseball. I'm happy the NBA playoffs have started.
Yes.
Got some basketball.
You got a team in the.
I'm a LeBron fan for so Lakers. If not them, Timberwolves. I end up beating them.
Okay, got it. Great.
After 26-year hiatus from Portland, the band Fish returned Sunday. Went to the show, amazing. So I'm very grateful that a bunch of 6-year-old white guys are still playing on the stage.
Yeah. Where was the band? Where was the concert at?
Oh, yeah, sold out. It was insane.
Amazing. That's been fun.
Fishing for hours.
Okay. Well, I want to introduce some new faces we have. I think 3 of our 4 Northeast team new faces are here. So Teresa and Brian are here, as is Brian Porter. So they were for a long time. You were all at John L. Scott together many moons ago, correct?
Yes.
And then they were at JMA Properties for how long, Brian?
13,
14 years. And we've been talking to Mylan, who's the owner at JMA, who's a great guy, and he's kind of decided he wanted to pursue some other ventures. So we were talking about it, and those of you know, Brian, and Teresa have been, and Jamie, who's not with us but is already super busy, have been kind of staples, top producing agents for many, many years. And they call when they put in Portland Monthly Magazine, 5-star award winners, et cetera, et cetera. So we are super excited to have them here. Brian Porter, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself and give us a fun fact?
Hi, I'm Brian Porter. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad to learn all the new technology that you've got here. And I've done transactions with quite a few off agents, so looking forward to working here. And I guess a fun fact is I'm from Colorado and I'm an avid skier. But this year I didn't get to go because I was very I'm going to get back into it.
We'll get you out there. We'll get you out there. Greg will get your skis waxed for you. So Brian and Teresa, I'm going to introduce you as a couple. They are married. A little fun fact, a little about you.
We have a kid together. So we're together for sure. We love sports. Our daughter plays soccer, and she's like 12 years old. Like, love soccer. So
Every weekend.
We're doing that, and we stay pretty active. So
that's awesome. And Jamie, I don't know where she is, but Jamie's also an amazing agent, and she's dual licensed. I think Brian Porter is dual licensed. You two are Oregon specific. They team up in a lot of cool different ways. Brian and Brian do a lot of plexes, duplexes, fourplexes, triplexes, I suppose. And it'll be fun to have them. So welcome all. And one of the fun things about them joining is they have a great office that the 4 of them worked out of for a long time. I'm excited for you all to see. So if you see some off signage It's gonna be a nice space in that side of town to have something. Cool. All right. Tyler, let's do lending update.
Let's do it.
So as many of you know, we partner with Capital M for a lot of co-marketing stuff and a lot of, they've just done a phenomenal job. Aaron and his team, Tyler and Christian, have been top of the lending field for a long, long time. And we're excited to hear what's the latest and greatest.
Thank you. Yeah. A lot of geopolitical turmoil going on right now, as we all know. Tariff talk. I do look at it as an opportunity. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm always an optimist, as you guys probably come to know. Every time I get a phone call from you, I look at it as an opportunity. Every time I call a client of ours, I look at it as an opportunity. I'll give you an example right now. I mean, how many listings are you guys seeing come up right now? Are you seeing more momentum in that regard? Are you seeing more stuff come on the market? Yeah. And with that, is the mix in those listings, is it kind of 50-50 ready to go versus not quite ready to go, like needs some work? Is that kind of what you're getting out there?
50-50 for me.
Yeah. So I look at this as an opportunity, really, I do. With interest rates staying pretty stable in the upper sixes for conventional, that's kind of where the market is telling us to be right now as far as rates are concerned. Who knows where they go from here? Nobody knows. Norman Powell came out last week saying, the tariffs could cause stagflation. I don't know. Nobody does, not even Norman. So I would just say that in these moments of uncertainty we find ourselves and our clients find themselves, let's look at this as a great opportunity. A lot of our clients are still chasing interest rate reduction, meaning a lot of points. Folks are chasing points. Folks are chasing lower interest rates. So let's have conversations with a client about, hey, what if we come in at, list price on a home that's been sitting for a few days and ask for a $10,000 credit to pay for the points to buy down the interest rate? I think that's what folks want to hear right now. In my experience, I don't know about you guys, but with home prices not coming down, interest rates not coming down necessarily, our clients just want some type of a win, some type of a deal, I think. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Are you getting the same vibe that, like, if they get one or two good things that come along with the transaction, they're like, yay, I was not expecting that. That's my vibe I'm getting. How about you guys? Yeah. So I don't know, as far as rates are concerned, they could go up, they could go down. We've heard all types of different things throughout the beginning of this year about the Fed reducing rates. And then recently with the tariffs, now that talk has kind of dwindled a little bit. I don't know. I feel like our economy is pretty strong right now. If I look outside the window, unemployment staying pretty stagnant. I haven't seen any real news on unemployment rates going up. So could it cause inflation, the tariffs, and cause a little bit of spike in interest rates? Sure, but that could be an opportunity for our folks, our clients, to come in and get an offer accepted with some type of a win, like an interest rate. Maybe it's a 2-1 buy down. Maybe it's a permanent buy down. Who knows? What else am I seeing? I'm seeing a lot of higher down payment stuff too, like older generation coming in, transplanting, whether that's across the country or across the state, coming closer to family. They've got a home to sell, so they've got $300,000 in equity, borrowing less, which is understandable in these times.
I also think you're going to see more cash in the market as
For sure.
people shifting from the market,
Definitely.
the real estate market.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't help the lending side, but generally in these times you see more cash.
Greg, I look at that as an opportunity as well. Thank you.
There you go.
I do, man. I really do, because oftentimes I find when I talk to those folks that maybe eventually they do want a loan because they want to put some money back into the market.
Right.
Or I give them an opportunity to find out something they didn't know before, which is, hey, if you've got $1 million in stock, you can put a margin loan against those assets. So you don't need a mortgage. You can borrow the money from yourself, pay all cash for the home, and you close in 2 weeks or less,
right,
as opposed to using a mortgage closing in 3 or 4 weeks. So these are fun times. These are interesting times. But I look around this room, you guys, and I get excited because of the fact that I'm one of 420,000 loan officers. I'm one of the 85,000 left over. from 2001. Or a handful of folks that are left over from 2021. That speaks to me about your diligence, your intentionality, your work ethic, your care. That stuff makes me excited. Probably getting flushed in the face because I am excited about that. I'm excited to be teaming up with you guys. So let me know.
Thank you, Tyler.
Go
T-ball.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, couple more intros. Where was he? I saw him for a second there. All of you know Garrett, but some of you maybe don't know his husband, Brandon, who was is a man of many talents, but has come back to rejoin us and is a super talented real estate professional. Picked it up really quick. Brandon, hi. Can you hear me? You want to say a quick word?
No, it's good to see. I see a lot of familiar faces, and it's grown a lot in the last 6 months. But it's nice to see everyone, and thanks for welcoming me back.
Great to have you. Good to see you, Brandon. And Chris has a guest, I think.
I do. I always sit in the worst spot to.
Sorry.
Sure, you guys are him. I don't know. Yes, Joe Worley. He lives up in Washington. He's also an agent up in Washington. He had a long, successful career in the trucking industry. He's now jumping into real estate, and we met a couple of weeks back, and I thought he would be a really great fit for kind of what we have going on. So he's trying to get a feel for our culture, and thank you guys for all taking my $20 and being really nice. So this worked out great. But yeah, I'm glad he's here.
Nice.
Yep.
For nothing if not bribable for sure. Awesome. Well, welcome, Joe. Good to have you here. Aaron has something that he wanted to have us bring. Aaron Pontius did. And Allie, do you want to speak to it? You don't know where it is. Okay, we'll skip it. We'll bring it back. I don't either necessarily. So we're going to go into opportunities and needs, and I may circle back to that. So who has a buyer, seller, etc. that they're working with? Maybe some seller that's coming to market. I'm sure many of you have those. It's the time of year where there's stuff going on. Yeah.
Got a 4 2.5 in Milwaukee. 3-year-old home. They barely lived in it. And it's off of Barlow Lynn Way, coming in at $777,000. A quiet little neighborhood right down the street from New Seasons. Don't tell her unless I said what else? Yeah, it's
How much do you say there?
777.
Okay.
Their lucky number.
I was gonna say. Right?
777. There you go. Anyone else?
we've got 2 projects, 2 flips that we're listing over the next 2 weeks in Beaverton, South Beaverton. Both are 4-bed, 3-bath. One's 1,900 square feet. The other is 2,300 square feet. Both super dialed. The bigger one will be 850. It's cool mid-century architecture, vaulted ceilings, courtyard. And the other one is just a kind of a tri-split, and they'll be listed for $699.
Awesome. If you haven't seen Ben's projects, their design eye is 10 out of 10. It's amazing. Gorgeous stuff that they do. So take a look. They always go quick. But they funded. I'm sure you'd love to learn your application. John, is your hand up? Kettering?
Hey, yes, it was. I've got a 3 2.5 fee simple townhouse, no HOA in Oregon City. That's going to go live Thursday for $475. Walkable, great access for parking. You've got a garage, fully renovated. Awesome.
Terrific. Thank you, John. Any other opportunities or needs, buyers or sellers, something you've been looking for? I guess, yeah, go for it.
Allie and I, we have permission to show this. It's not quite ready, but it's very unique. It's on an acre, has a pool. It's a beautiful views up on Bull Mountain, and really the nicest street, Tiger. Most of the homes are, well, a few of the homes are gated. They're all on acres. But this one needs, it hasn't really been touched for, how long do you think, like 20 years? I mean, it needs update, you know. And the home next door sold for $1,750,000 just a little while ago, and they're redoing it. This one's gonna be $1,175,000. Beautiful views, nice pool. The pool's really nice pool, and the house just needs updating, extensive updating. Has a water feature in the living room. Back in the.
It's really cool. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Does it function?
It could be so cool. And
The
back
whole
in-
house could be just incredible. It just needs some TLC and
Yeah,
it's one of the best lots in Tigard. We listed for
175, they think.
right under 1-1, right about.
That's a great street. Duchilli, I think it's
Duchilli.
great. And I've sold up there before. That is the best, one of the best streets in Tigard. There's not a lot of houses on there.
And
It's elevated, the
4 or
lots
5.
are huge and the houses are very stately. So then you want to do a project of some real scale. I think you take that 1-1 to 2 really. pretty
It's a
quick.
tough
Turn it into
number
a swimming
for
pool in
yeah.
front.
Yeah,
It would work, but it's a tough number for a.
right.
Yeah. Flipper.
Awesome. If you have anything under 105,011 in Lake Oswego, let me know. I've got a buyer who's ready to go.
What is that price? 105,
1,050,000
1,000,000.
up to let's say 1-1, Greg, make these for you.
Much better.
Yes, for 50 grand. 1-1, let me know. 3-bedroom, 2-bath plus, just livable. She'd like an easement if she could get one. Anyone
I got
else?
1 up to 1-2 coming up.
Okay, let's talk. We'll
Right
negotiate.
behind Westridge Elementary.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Brian, Teresa, anything coming up to chat about or something you brought over that's on the market?
A fourplex in North Portland that is, I think, a good deal. It's $895, it's like bringing 75,000 in income, and it's under rented. And we thought it would go really quickly at $895. It's like a 12 gross rent multiplier. And it's sitting there. It's been there for like 29 days now. And we're getting real low offers, but we're not getting like nibble offers, which I think the owner would go for. And boy, there's a lot of plexes, like the inventory is building in flex market. So there might be some opportunity.
Awesome.
We also have a listing in Reddiff, Alberta. That is, it was a 1905, rebuilt in 2017. 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. It's really nice, for $899.
Good price for rebuild, absolutely.
I've got a lot in Vancouver on St. James, 0.8 acres. It's commercial, it's 500,000. And it's got some hair on it, but it could be a really, really good development opportunity.
Could be shaved.
Could be shaved.
All right, anyone else opportunities, needs? Okay, moving on. Adrian, you ready? Yeah, you're up. Adrian is here from Environmental Works and just wanted to, if you want to come.
Stay here, or do I-
You can stay here. Come on. It's probably better to come here because they can't see you. All these people wearing the funny pajamas.
Okay, I'm gonna give you that. Oh, that's for you. Hi, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Adrian from Environmental Works. I know a handful of you. I do business development and marketing for Environmental Works. We do sewer radon, heating and oil tank inspections, as well as we do the repairs, decommissioning and mitigation. We own a full service septic business. So we do the ESCRs, the operating maintenance agreements, we can replace, repair, I don't know, all the things septic. I don't even know what else goes with septic, 'cause it's fairly new for us. And then we have a full service plumbing business. So we can do everything from heating hot water tank to lifting toilets, full repiping, all the things plumbing. But what's interesting about our company is we do a lot of community service and a lot of giving back. So if there's things that you guys are doing, I would love to get involved and connect. You're doing the food bank, please let me know. Because not only will I help you to boost your social media and what you're doing, which helps you with your clients to let them know, because if you're doing good things, I just want to be in business with you. But it also helps you to sort of get the word out who you are. So please take advantage of me. I also belong to a lot of different real estate groups. I heard a couple of you are dual licensed. I just took a board position with the Women's Council of Realtors up in Vancouver. They have a brand new chapter. So if any of you are interested, we have an event coming up. Today's May. So June, I think it's June 23rd. I'll have to double check. I'll get that information to you, but it's a wellness event. So it's super fun. We're doing sound bath and yoga and journaling and all the fun things. I also sit on the board for the National Association of Hispanic Realtors. And so that's a fun one as well that you all should be getting involved with, because my understanding is the buy power in this country will be 55% by 2030 for the Latin community. So you should know what's going on in that community. Ooh, that's a lot of words, sorry. So yeah, that's what I do, and that's what Environmental Works kind of does. So yeah, reach out. If there's also bids you're getting and you think it seems high, we are happy to take a look and tell you, yes, that's great, or no, that is way too high, or no, that's the city. You should probably not have your clients, because right now our economy is tough, as I believe my mortgage person told us, and things are kind of complicated. And we're seeing a lot of people lying about work that needs to be done that doesn't need to be done. So be very mindful for a second opinion. If sometimes people are telling you there's a $30,000 repair that needs, or a $20,000 repair, have a second opinion, because unfortunately there are some companies that are making bad choices, and that is how they are choosing to make money. And that's not how our company does business. We've been in business for 15 years, well, 16 years. We have something like 1,500 reviews or something ridiculous like that. So we wouldn't be in business if we didn't run things well. And I know a lot of you like to use your home inspectors, but I will tell you, we have the same criteria. Either have a leak or you don't. You either have radon or you don't. You either have a heating oil tank or you don't. So we're not. I know people think sometimes the conflict of interest. We have the same, view of it as your inspector. The advantage of using us is your inspector sometimes will fail things, but we won't. If the camera's not underwater, we will not fail a sewer line. And we don't have to. It's by law. But your home inspector, there's a little CYA, and some of them just don't know. And so that is something else, like one of those things, by having someone that's a specialty and that's all they do. You get your bids faster by using us for your inspections, usually within 24 hours. If we do a third-party bid, it's usually 48 to 72 hours. So that's the advantage as well. Our inspections are super cheap. We charge $99 for our sewer, $95 for our radon, and $125 for our heating oil tanks. And I think it's $299 if you do all three, get a little discount. But here's the greatest part. Sorry, it's Tuesday morning, but feels like a Monday. We will test your personal homes for free. Can't be your secondary home. It can't be your kid's home. But if it is your primary residence, we will come and do a radon, sewer test, or heating oil tank locate. We'll do all three, even if you want. So you know what it's like. And for new agents, the cool thing about that is you've probably never been through it, especially if you don't own a home. So now you can say what it's like to actually do this to your clients, rather than your first client. You're just kind of hoping you can kind of swing it and hope for it. The fun thing about me is I actually had a background in real estate for a little while. I've done mortgage. So that's also what makes me fun. I have probably enough information to be dangerous, but not enough to give any advice. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. I don't want to take too long. Thank you, Ellen, for letting me come in, and thank you.
Thanks,
for
Adrian.
appreciate it.
A lot of realtors having service next week. Okay. Terrific. Well, we will move into our main chat today. And today's gonna be more of a conversation than a presentation. So what we wanted to talk about, it's getting to a market where I feel like, and we've had this discussion a number of times, things are selling either really quickly, or we are seeing things that have lasted maybe a period of time and then they reach this stagnation period. And so what we wanted to talk about is staying engaged with sellers whose home is slow to sell. So again, want to dialogue and take the, two heads are better than one, the collective information that we all have. Obviously, I've got some opinions doing this for a while, but we want to make sure that we're taking a collaborative approach to maintaining those relationships. As my friend Sean always would say, well, I'll get to that a little bit later because it's in the presentation. So I want to talk about what works and what doesn't. Obviously, being collaborative with the sellers is important. Looking around the room, I've talked to a lot of you and on Zoom as of recently saying, hey, I've got this home that's not selling. What should I do here? Seller's starting to get on my case. Who's gotten the question after 2.5 weeks on the market from a seller? Hey, what else are we doing to get my home sold? And that's always a tough one in real estate, because a lot of the work is pre-work that we do in getting the house ready to go in that first impression on the market.
they got burned out on that. One thing that I do is every week, I send a weekly listing update. I show them all the views on the RMLS, show them the views on Zillow. I do an updated comp report just to show that nothing else is also moving around us. It's not just us, and that has helped. But this last week, we talked about doing just $1,000 price adjustment every 2 weeks, and sure enough, we did the first one and we got a showing, and our views spiked again. So it's just been a lot of conversation about it's not just us. I mean, there's another agent that reached out to me at one point, like, why hasn't your listing sold? She's got a listing up there too. And I was like, great question. Like, there's another one around the corner that's been in the market for, I forget, 100 days now, one down the street that took 170 days. It's like this little pocket. So it's just weird. But just a lot of communication.
Tons of communication with the seller and the $1,000 price drops. How often were you doing those?
We're going to do it every 2 weeks for 2 months.
Love it.
I think looking at days on the market from the get-go and setting the expectation from the beginning that this might not take a week. And that, this could take several months. That's always important. If you don't say anything to them, they don't know how long it's going to take. Might as well set the expectation it's going to take a while and then it happens sooner, obviously. So that's important. I also like when they ask me that question, I always like to put it back on them because I think they're thinking about what they would do. So it's like, hey, I have some other ideas what we can do, but tell me, you might have some ideas. Tell me what you think we should do. We're not selling. It's been 4 weeks. Because I do think they're spinning their wheels in their head. Oh, I would have done this, this, and this. I want to hear that.
Yeah. You can't address expectations that have not been verbalized. So if you don't know, everyone comes into a conversation with a different worldview, different way of looking at things. There are 2 neighbors on either side, might have sold 4 years ago and multiple offers in 2 days. But if that's their expectation level, you haven't addressed it. Yeah. Anyone else?
That's a really hard one, and that's a good point. We had a house a couple years ago before I left the real estate world that these people were boarders. They should show situation. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say that publicly, but their neighbors all sold their houses for like 800,000, and they were really upset because there's no way you could have gotten more than 4 or 5 from them. And so, but in their mind, and then the house sat there for a year and a half, and they pulled it off, and now they want to put it back on. My friend said originally, and what do you do in that case? Out of curiosity, I'm curious. When who's just got such a situation that's unrealistic.
Well, it depends on if they'll listen to you on pricing, right? I mean, were they priced appropriately? It was just no.
I mean, yes, if the house is perfect.
Yeah, you have to make a business decision at that point, right? What do they say? It's best to be the first love, second spouse, and third realtor. Sometimes letting someone else go through all the problems and working out the kinks can be very helpful. I would probably not want to list that if they're asking 800 or 775 because we know they're unreasonable. Yeah.
I was just curious if we had a conversation last night.
Yeah, you also have to make that decision. Like, do you want to go through a year of not selling something just because you wanted the listing? And it's phone call after phone call, and why isn't it selling? And your brain is spinning because there's nothing really you can do because they don't want to do what you want to do. Or you could have just said no at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
But the unrealistic expectation that people sometimes have because their neighbors are better.
But sometimes people do take overpriced listings with people who can get to reality.
Right.
We can talk about that too. I mean, let's be honest, Henry.
In part of my listing presentation, I have a segment where I draw out on a piece of paper. I say, your house is going to sell for this price, and I'll just call it X today. And I say, this is my gut feeling, backed by my CMA. It's going to sell for X. And if we price it at X, we will get it sold in a week. If you want to price it at X plus what you think it's worth, then we'll get it sold in 9 months or 6 months or 3 months or whatever months it is. And if we go X minus, a few percent, then we'll get it sold in 1 day. What do you think that you want to do? And they'll say, well, we kind of want to go with at least, in a few weeks. Okay. So this is the price. And, I tell them that in all the math that I do, I'm usually within, 3 to 5% of this price. It could go a little bit higher, it could go a little bit lower, but, it's going to be very, very close to this bullseye. you know, and so some people will say, well, I really want this price. Well, you know, cool. We can try for that price if you like, and I'm happy to entertain the idea of, you know, doing this for, you know, months. If you have that level of patience, we can try for it. And then eventually, you know, we'll have to have the conversation of possibly doing a price drop because we're not getting any views. We're not getting anybody looking at your home. And if nobody's looking at your home, you are now still a homeowner, you know? And so eventually it'll drift back to this is the price and you could have gotten it today. You know, sometimes I get the listing because, you know, I was honest. Sometimes I don't get the listing because I should have told them, dude, your house is worth $1 million and it'll sell tomorrow, you know, on a fixer upper. Someone else will come in and they'll get the listing because of that.
But then they often fight it for a long time, and it's, you know, maybe 30% of the time they sell it, and the other 70 they've got a rough go until it expires.
Yeah,
you see that a lot in luxury, especially around here. You see houses selling on their third realtor. It bumps from, you know, luxury realtor 1 to 2 to 3, and 3 sells it, and they've all been through it on. And they do that on 12 different houses. Chris,
an agent, I think a bunch of us in here probably know Bill Marquardt had a kind of a famous line that stuck with me. He said, you can't get a price reduction without getting the listing first. And that's either really hurt me actually in scenarios or helped me a lot in some, because but also makes me preface the conversation of listing appointments to say, if there is a discrepancy between what I think it's worth and what they think it's worth, to really have that conversation about listening to what the market tells you in that first couple of weeks when you hit the market, and then acting accordingly and quickly, because I feel like there's no better data point than what the market's going to tell you. We can run numbers all day long. They could analyze every property that's sold in their neighborhood for the past 5 years, but ultimately, if it hits the market and it's crickets for 2 weeks, that's usually a pretty good indicator. So I try to have that conversation up front, say we should listen to that data and adjust quickly if there is a discrepancy. So.
Great point.
Following up on that, I think it's always important to get a sense of what that seller thinks their house is worth before you do the CMA.
Yep.
Just build in that question somewhere. Hey, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
You know, 10% of the time they're like, we have no idea, but that's not usually what you get. They have a number.
They always have a number. Yeah. That's why I use the pre-listing interview that Ninja put out. You know, I'm a big Ninja fan, and they say in one of the questions you get down, you kind of go through the niceties and the details, and you say, what are you going to be asking for the property? It's phrased that way very intentionally because about 40% of the time I get, well, that's what you're here for. I get, yeah, absolutely. And what you say is not going to affect the value, but everyone knows they almost always have a number. It just takes 2 or 3 jolts to coax it out of them. So let's pop up the next slide. So it's the genius stud dilemma. If you price it, you know, if the sellers are willing to sell their property at a price that's reasonable, you put it on the market, and maybe you thought it was a good price. Things change all the time. But what I was saying earlier is my friend Sean always would say, if you sell a property in a weekend, you're a genius. And then if it lasts 3 weeks or takes longer, you're a dud. You're the same realtor you were 3 weeks ago. But, you know, then they're writing glowing reviews. You know, Leanne priced my home beautifully. I've never had better marketing and representation than Leanne, et cetera. The same client, if they didn't happen to be in a whirlwind market, will think you're dead. So what do you do in those situations? To me, it's all about communication. Leanne talked about that, having those constant communication. What's the cadence? Dennis, how about you? We'll pick on you. How often do you communicate with an active seller that you have on the market?
I like to communicate daily in the first week. And then from there going.
Yeah. So weekly after the first week, daily the first, because the nerves are at their highest and everyone's wondering every little thing, and then they settle in a little bit. I think that's a great cadence. Rakesh, how about you?
I think I would resonate with Sindosh daily first week. I had a seller who didn't like to be called, so I had to manage those expectations, but I would still pester him as much as I could so that I'm not surprised last minute saying, oh, I haven't talked to you in months and this is what's happening to the property right now. And he's like, you should have kept in touch. And I'd rather make that upfront and rather than them expecting that from me.
So making those client service calls are super important. And maybe it's not a call. To your point, if this person doesn't like to be phone called, but having texts, having emails that follow up. What are some communications that you can have that are generally widely available? even if there's not much happening on a listing? What kind of actions can you almost always take?
Hey, Drew.
Hey.
Hi. I've got some little tips here. This came from a conversation I was having with one of the coaches that I work with. Just what to say in these weekly phone calls. Sometimes I think we get stuck on the customer service aspect of it. And I can email this to you guys, but GEAR, and it's an acronym for goals, environment, action, and road ahead. So reaffirming their goals every time that you talk to them, talking to them about the environment, sharing stats, market conditions, interest rates, days on market, what their competition is, new listings, pricing trends, having that conversation, where they're at in the action stage, what we've accomplished so far, and then road ahead. And then every time you're talking to them, kind of having that recap so that you're setting expectations and clear next steps. And I've been using that for a couple weeks now, and it's been a game changer.
I love that. Repeat what the acronym in just the one word that it means. Goals.
GEAR, goals, environment, action, and then road ahead. And I'll put this in the box for everybody.
Yeah, goals, environment, action, road ahead. I love that because that's your framework for a client service call check-in. And I think that environment is important. I listed 2 houses in Tigard. One I sold, it was $1 million. We got multiple offers. They live next door to theirs. This is the sister, this is the brother, right? And their spouses. Sold this one in 2 days on the market, multiple offers, 115. Of course, I'm a genius here, right? Put the right next door neighbors. Oh, Drew did such a great job. We're going to do this one here next door. Well, guess what? One thing I didn't do, and maybe it's a thought that I have, making a note of where interest rates average the day that you list the property, right? Because that was that little dip when we listed the other one. Rates are about 5/8 of a point higher than they were there. That's a huge difference in supply and demand. As I've gotten deeper into my career, I realized I was pricing a property in Tigard yesterday that has a ton of solds in the last 5 months. However, and this is like 650 to 850 range in the kind of that Fappel area of Tigard, great house coming up that's like brand new, by the way. But it was about like tons of solds in the last 5 months, but 13 active and only 2 pending, which means in the last 60 days, only 2 got pending. To me, that's more of an indicator of what's happening in the market. I told them, look, there's a lot of competition here and not much has moved in the last, what's typical escrow, 45 days. That pending data is more live data than even the sold data, which could have happened in a different rate environment. So overpricing in a depreciation market, what happens when you do that is that chase that you're always doing, right? Market value is slipping. Property, you have the most leverage, the seller has the most options, is that first impression. And what you do over time is you can chase that market value down and down and down. You have to do these price drops to get ahead of it so that people see enough value here to do it. I still remember the most gargantuan example I've seen of this was during like the Great Recession when I saw properties. I saw a property in Happy Valley list originally for 1.1 and sell for 380. Wow. Right? I mean, this was, and Brian, you probably were working through that, and you're just chasing the floor, chasing the floor, chasing the floor. And you can't do that. That's what happens when pricing is not done, I think, through the front window and only through the rear view window, which might be comps. So I think that current supply and demand dynamics are more important. Use those Altos reports. They're free. Looking at the quartile, because that doesn't take sold data into account, right? They're free to have. So if you say, hey, I'm listing a property in 97233 area of Portland, what in that quartile is happening? What's happening in the 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75, 100? If you have one in that 25 to 50 and you see that the average days on market is 90 days, that's the conversation I would have. That's your best piece of data as far as absorption rate goes there. Al, anything to add to that? Yeah, talking about sold comps, I think absorption rate is more important than sold comps. Sold comps should tell you a range of where it's going to go, but within that range, whether to go high or low often has more to do with absorption rate. Who uses in Cloud CMA that average price per square feet scatter graph? Do you like that, Greg?
Oh, scatter graph? No.
Well, excuse me, scatter graph, that one that has all the dots.
Yeah.
And then the band, and then I always add the trend line to it. I would highly recommend making that your key point. So it's called average price per square foot. And when you do it, it always shows a band. And one thing Ninja always talks about is finding, when you find that band, have the seller say, hey, here's the range, here's the highest, here's the lowest, and we create a belt. Got a trend line right in the middle. So the most average property in the most average lot and the most average condition within this band of properties is going to sell for this on this graph. And then think of them sliding their dial up and down, right? Okay, well, you've done your brand new kitchen, everything else in here is 80s, we go up a little bit. Oh, you're on a busy road, down, flag lot, down, right? I think that's helpful because you can come to a conversation with the sellers before you list the property rather than, I think it's worth 850. What do you think? We think it's worth $1 million, right? That's not a data-based conversation. That is a, you know, I think this, you think that type of situation. Okay. Three-legged stool of real estate. I think this is a great way to explain it to clients because when you're having those conversations 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks into your listing, they need to understand what can't be changed. Location, we can all agree, is a fixed factor, right? You're never going to be able to move a property. I suppose something environmentally could change where a road gets moved, but that's a very rare situation. Or some nuisance comes out, but on the whole, this is a fixed thing that you can't do anything. Condition is something that we address most of the time before listing the property. These are things like staging. These are also things like home prep. These are roof. These are improvements. These are remodeling. I'd say some of the things that fall the onus on you as an agent would be in here. This would be, you know, how the photography looks, how the marketing is done, how wide it is on Zillow Showcase. Do you have a 3D tour? Are there drone photos? Do you have twilight shots? Whatever that might be. There's some adjustment that can be done here. One of the challenges is once you've gotten these two aspects perfect, if you ever get a client to there, and a lot of clients will not agree to that condition, right? They don't want to do the work. How many times do you ask the question, hey, do you want to price this home as is or with repairs and improvements? And they say, hey, just as is, right? We just don't want to mess with it. You haven't necessarily moved that condition lever as far as you can, but price, if you have, you've got the client who dialed it in and did everything, price becomes the only lever that you can pull on there. Any experience with that, or do you have conversations related to this? Anyone wants to share? How you talk about price reductions and what you can and can't control? I like Jennifer's gear conversation. I think that's a lot about it. Jen?
I think, you know, going back to your point with Ninja and leaning into some of those systems, if you guys haven't heard of buyer's eye pricing, I would look at that in the book and having your sellers actually walk through houses. Like I did this a lot in like 2008, 9, and 10. Like, let's walk through this house and see if we can get a price reduction, how it compares to, you know, the other homes in the neighborhood. And, or like, I'll just bring my laptop and we'll just look at comps. Like, here are the comps I'm looking at. How does this compare to your house? And they're usually pretty honest about it. And then we can have more of a conversation about like where pricing needs to come in. And then it's not like me against them. It's them choosing like, yeah, that house is better than mine.
Putting them in the car sometimes, especially in the neighborhood, to see what the competition looks like. Because in their mind, they assume everyone, you know, oh, I know Sally over there. She's, you know, her hair's always messed up, so her house must be trashed. Well, it's actually pretty nice. Let's walk you through and see what the house looks like, showing them those comps and saying, okay, take your house out of it. Which of these 4 would you buy? And why would you buy that one? Well, because price is better condition. Okay, let's compare that to yours.
I think setting those expectations from the get-go to your first conversation about a price reduction can't be when you want a price reduction. It has to be at the beginning of the list. We may be having to talk about a price reduction in a couple of weeks. Don't be surprised when I bring that conversation up. Oh, yeah, we understand that. So that helps. So then you're not just shocking them with price reduction. You've never talked to them about it before. You're providing them all these facts right away. They're going to be a little overwhelmed by that. But if they expect the conversation to happen at some point.
And explaining that markets are dynamic, right? It's not the same market today that your neighbors were in or you'll be in 2 weeks.
I really agree with that. I always mention it doesn't sell right away and it's in a good location and in, you know, perfect condition. It's price. And I also have one that's more expensive home, but I don't, maybe on less expensive homes, but that $1,000 every 2 weeks or whatever. I tell them I'm into large price reductions.
Well, we've already done it $20,000.
Oh,
and
okay.
even the other homes around us, there's the one down the street is $100,000 less.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Yes, they're all sitting.
Well, this one's a more expensive home, but I think we'll go down 50 today. To what our number was, amazingly enough.
Yeah, where you eventually
Which was,
suggested.
okay, we can give it a shot.
Yeah.
And you bring it up right then, okay, we'll give it a shot.
Well, that's sometimes you appease people by doing that. You know that when you.
And don't wait 2 months to do it, 2 weeks.
Right, and you also don't want to have that conversation until you have the listing contract signed. That's not something you talk about in your listing appointment.
I always have a rule of thumb, and Ally had it up on the screen, 3 to 5% for meaningful price reductions. So there's a lot of research that shows that something's within 3% of where it's actually going to finally sell, people will make an offer. I get people coming from other places. I can think of a client from Jersey, and you guys can think of people from Jersey. They have a reputation, probably well earned, as being pretty aggressive. They're like, well, I mean, I'll come in and offer $600 on an $800,000 house. I'm like, people in Portland are kind of polite and sweet, and you don't see a lot of that, right? You might see some, maybe on a fourplex, you see some low offers, but on the whole, would you not agree that it's more common to just not offer at all than to offer something that's going to be insulting to someone? So I always have the rule that, hey, if it was within 3% of where it's going to sell, it would already have done, because that negates the argument that comes from clients of, well, let's just drop it by $1,500. Well, you're at $750, right? If someone thought it was worth, if we were within $22,500 of what they thought it was worth, they would have made an offer now. So that tells me, well, we need to get to another area of the pricing place to do this. So I would say if I'm at $750, $725 would be the smallest price reduction I would want to take in that instance. Another thing that's important to talk to about clients, and I was talking to John Gooley about this. He has a client that he thinks a home is really, really well priced. And he said, we are at $648 on it. And I think we're below everything else. Nothing's moved in the neighborhood. We were originally at $690, and we talked this weekend about this. And he said, what do you think I should do, Drew? And I said, I think you should go to $650 because of what they call bridge pricing. And some of you have heard me give this speech before, but there's a lot of research that shows at a bridge number, and this is a function of realtor.com and Zillow.com and all of these people who, you go to Zillow and you slide this little Price is Right wheel to get to where you want. But, there's these big hefty numbers, 725, 750. There's not a lot of people that set their price parameters to 738, 800, right? So when you're at 750, only at 750,000, are you essentially fishing in two ponds at the same time? You're showing your property to everyone at 7 to 750, but you're also showing your property to everyone at 750 to 800. At 748, John's property is only being seen by 7 to 750 people. So I like being on those brackets. There's 38% more activity, showings, and offers at those levels. So,
and I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit on this one and say I kind of disagree. Not with just bridge pricing, of course, I agree in general, but when you're at the right price. So, Leanne, if your listing's at the right price, I completely am all for $1,000 price reductions if you feel it's priced correctly. And the reason for that is, I believe my next slide here is because of the algorithms. And this is something that we wanted to talk about, is that portals react to action. So they're going to send out emails based on open houses, small price reductions like $1,000, or back on market, things of that nature. So I think it's actually really critical to keep putting these houses in front of things as much as you can, and $1,000 price reductions do that. So I actually think it's pretty genius if you think you're at
and I'm 100% with Ally. When I talk about these big drops, I'm talking about having a conversation and having leverage with a client who is overpriced, in your opinion. If you're at the right price, stick it out. You don't want to, absolutely. And open houses, showcasing a property on Zillow, a price drop. Those three things in today's day and age, whether we like it or not, this is the internet for houses. Realtor, Zillow especially, maybe a little bit of homes, some Redfin. That is the environment. If you get if you get a link from someone that's not searching on your Real Scout or something, tell me if anyone has experience of getting something from something that is not Redfin, Zillow, Realtor, or Homes.com. So that is the internet, right? So you have to reverse engineer from there. What can we do to make sure that the properties are showing in their best way there?
Can we appreciate my AI for a second?
Redfin has a Z. Zillow has, that's kind of not bad, but the place, that's like German Fifth Element stuff. Any comments on that?
I have a question for the room.
Yeah, Chris.
Hopefully this doesn't go way off track, but I think I asked this in Slack like a year ago, but I'm curious on people's philosophy on when. Obviously, the first conversation, maybe when you're taking it on to say, hey, this might be the reality is we may need one, but how far in are you like, okay, we should actually heavily consider this now-ish?
What is this?
There's price reduction, sorry. Curious what people's thoughts are. It's not one showing in 2 weeks, or you're like, we need one. If there's a lot, but it's a month and you're still getting showings, do you still hold off?
Rakesh, what do you think?
Just to answer that point, I had a buyer who I was with yesterday, and the pricing was, I think, about 20,000 above comps. And the buyer was like, we've looked at houses in the area and we like this house, but we don't want to put an offer at 20,000 below asking because we know they won't accept it. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I can tell you the remorse from the buyer is that they don't want to lowball, but they like the house. And I'm like, we could just put the offer regardless and see if the worst they could say is no. So,
yeah.
But that's the mindset. I think if you're priced above asking, you should look at comps and start working it out pretty fast.
Yeah. And one of the conversations I like to have beforehand is we're never going to be mad, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when we get an offer. Because that's the person who took the time to write an offer on your house. Let's be mad at the 80 other people who showed it and didn't even give us feedback and didn't do anything about it, right? We can reject offers. That's great. At least it's something that we can work with. And I can tell you situations that we got offers of 80% of what they were listed at and sold them for 101%, right? Sometimes things just change. You can always work with an offer, but having that conversation up front so that they know, and then that gives you the permission essentially to ask every agent who shows a property to write an offer. But would they take that? I don't know, but I'll present it. They're very open-minded to getting this sold in a way that's fair for both parties. Part of the art of real estate is seducing offers out of agents that maybe are a little bit shy and putting them together, and it can still look really good. Okay. So one thing, when people ask you what else can you do when you've been on the market, one of the best communication things you can do is, well, first put yourself in their mindset. What are they thinking at that point? Well, either my house sucks or I chose the wrong real estate professional. And it's much easier to say of those two options, I chose the wrong. It's much easier to blame Brian than it is to say, oh, my house sucks. So that's an easy thing to do. And they feel like they're alone, right? What you can do is start having conversations with everyone else. So when I bring this Tigered one for 700 on, if it sits, I can call those other 13 properties and say, hey, what kind of action are you experiencing? What's happening on your property? I see it's a gorgeous house, been on the market for 28 days. How many showings have you had? When you can report back to them that data, it makes them feel like, okay, this is a market phenomenon. This is not my phenomenon. It's not me just sitting here with a terrible product. Things have stagnated a little bit, and that happens. And real estate goes in fits and starts. We've seen a lot of that where I was just reading an article in the Oregonian like a month ago where stuff started to sell that had been on the market 150 days because we hit that little inventory lull, maybe in about March. I think we're coming out of that. So using aligned messaging to do that, reach out to other agents that people have shown the property, keep communicating with them, using the broker network that we have, talking to other agents, having that conversation with them will help. I would call it active, pending, and recent sales nearby. See if you can learn something. Maybe they gave a ton of closing costs and we're looking at this as a comp. Do your appraisal where you're calling and say, were there any closing costs? Well, maybe the 3 sales all gave, 5% towards seller credit. So that on your $1 million homes, that's really 50 grand that was given 3 times away. The more conversations you can have, the better. Greg?
I was just going to say, if you really want real feedback, call agents. Don't text them, don't email them, call them. You'll pull so much more information out of a phone call. Maybe they don't answer, that's fine. But realtors usually answer their phones. So
If you don't leave a message, they'll call you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, just feel like you get more information than you wanted when you talk to them.
A lot of times, yeah, and that's another, we've talked about that before. Don't give too much away, but most agents do. Most agents get into this business because, and we can tell you, meeting with enough agents for years, I love houses and I love people, and they love people. They love talking to people. Is what they mean. I don't know if they love people. They like having words coming out of their mouth and directing them at people. That's the number one criteria for being a real estate professional. So you get them going, you ask them enough questions. I had a guy who was not going to tell me where another offer was. He was one of these stoic guys, but I asked him 3 or 4 times, 4 different ways, and eventually told me exact price. And he was like, no, we can't do that. Seller would say, I said, well, I mean, is the range somewhere around 925? No. If I wrote an offer at 720, would I be higher or lower? I can't really tell you that. My clients are cash, though. 730, is that a higher or lower? Eventually said higher. So just keep having the conversation. Hello.
I think with, for myself at least, I start getting really nervous when a listing has been on the market for long enough that my relationship with these clients are going to be really strained. So I start getting nerves in my head of like, what am I going to talk to them about? They hate me. I'm the worst thing that's ever happened. What do I say when I make these calls? And I think this tool is really helpful trying to show that you're doing something. Hey, I just called the agent that sold the property down the street. Here's how my conversation went, right? It gives me a reason to call and a reason to show them I'm working for them, when really there's not a lot we can do at a certain point if they're not willing to adjust their location or their condition. We need to get creative and start trying to figure out what can I do at this point. And I think, I really love aligned showing. I think it is a really amazing product. This is something that I don't know that everyone just knows about. There's a way in aligned showings to click broadcast message. So this is a good feature if you have an offer on a property and there was some other people who were interested, you got a lot of text saying, hey, let me know if something happens. This is a one button goes to everybody sort of a situation where you can click broadcast and you can send them whatever information. Or something I did recently on a different listing is we were about to have a price reduction. So I thought, okay, this is a significant price reduction. What if I got some interest before we did that? So I sent out a broadcast message to every shown, hey, we're about to drop this 25,000. If you want to get in, be the first to see it with a new price, new set of eyes, another good opportunity for a broadcast message there. There's also a download activity report that you can do. So anyone who's shown it, if you have different feedback criteria, that's all within Align Showing. So I just wanted to highlight those kind of features that Align has.
And that we have an offer on the property is something you should always be doing as a matter of fact. Just there's a phenomenon, I like to call it weed hiding, that people sit back and wait. They know that's their property, but they've made a bet with themselves that it's going to come down, right? So, and you can't be convinced otherwise. But if they hear an offer's come in on it, it changes their game, and they would not come out of the weeds. They'll just communicate that with it, right? They're just going to sit there and see it go pending and then kick themselves. Who's had a client that's like, I know this is going to be price reduced, that sits on a property that should be theirs. I want to be cognizant of time, so I want to take you through some tools really quickly here at the end. There are online listing reports that exist. This is something that you can absolutely pull. The team can show you how to do that. If not, it aggregates the showings across different sources. Thank you for being here. And our team can do that for you. It's by request if you want to do that, but it's a great thing to do to have them there. Everyone should be setting everyone up. I think in best practice would be with 2 things on Real Scout. One is market activity reports, where it shows their zip code or their specific area. It shows what's happening there in the market activity. It's a very simple setup within Real Scout. It's just market activity report when you get into their Real Scout profile. I also think it's really beneficial for them to get listings dripped on them that are very specific to their area, as if they're a buyer, so that they're informed and they're not just sitting here, oh, okay, house 3 doors down comes on the market. They should know about that. Especially sometimes people don't put signs up. So set those 2 things up when you,
Is there a area that Real Scout works in, or can you do this Oregon wide?
It's Oregon wide. And so the interesting thing about Real Scout is all of their data is coming from all of the other agents who also use the platform. So in Real Scout, you can actually email other agents who have buyers set up on similar criteria searches. You can see showing activity in Real Scout. So this graph here is like how many buyers have been clicking on properties throughout the entire state of Oregon. It's actually national, but I believe you can do it as well. It's just if the MLS that you have is set up on it. And Robin, I saw your question in the chat. I'll send out a video on how to do the broadcast messages, like little Zoom video, and I'll send out a video on market activity reports too.
Awesome. But some things that, you get busy, you set up a listing, you're kind of like, I've launched that one. Now you're busy kind of prospecting, trying to get new clients, you're showing buyers, trying to get another listing. Having these things set up from the beginning keep you in flow and keep you from being that faceless other that's easy to fire because you've been on the market for 3 or 4 weeks. So Real Scout would be important. Also want to talk about Showcase one more time. If, let's say you have a client who would decline that at the first blush, they didn't want to pay the $400, you didn't want to pay the $400, bringing it back in as a way to boost it. We have seen that happen. One of our agents did that real recently and it jumped to the top and all of a sudden the activity went through the roof. So if you want to use it, you didn't use it up front, a $400 investment, at some point reframe it as second wave marketing, like, hey, we're going to give this a little bit of we're going to give this a nitro boost, second wave marketing, and we're going to highlight the premium features and make sure that it looks really good. It's a nice thing to do. I would say at the 2-3 week mark, it's a perfect place to do that, especially in conjunction with the price reduction. Mean that as a carrot for it. So make sure you're doing weekly market updates with your clients. Set a time, set a cadence, both email and that you're having some sort of communication that's two-way. Feedback reports are super important. Be proactive with your strategy adjustments. Like Greg said, you need to have a conversation up front. You've secured the listing, of course. Bottom line, here's what it looks like. One line I've always used through the years is price reductions to me are like knowing when to take microwave popcorn out of the microwave, right? You just kind of hear enough slowing of the pops that that most of it's done. Hey, we need to do something different here, right? It's kind of part art and part science. If it's still going strong, you still have a lot of showings. We're getting people that are close to offers. I'm not touching that price. Or it's just sitting there quiet as a bird. Nothing's happening at all. Bird's quiet, clam. Sitting there quiet for a long time. I might say, okay, people are voting with their feet, one or the other way. So if you have too many showings with no interest, that shows you have a price problem. And sometimes no showings show a price problem. So, and of course, if you're gathering a lot of feedback from the showings, you should be able to get a feel for that too. And just be proactive. Make sure you have your touch points when activity flows.
Can we take a minute to appreciate my AI on this one too? The words that you're
the Ariel blend Roy Oyan Lure. So just to sum up, set clear expectations, schedule regular check-ins, refresh the listing, do some sort of bump that makes it move. Open house is probably the easiest way to do, to be honest with you. An open house is notified. They look at it as something that is happening. It is often sent out. Redfin will send things out. If you can do enough work on the front end to get a lot of people click on it, Redfin, it'll hot home blast to everybody. In the first 7 days, Zillow Showcase sends to every buyer that's set up in the criteria, which is something that you should mention. And make sure you're sharing data. Data is your key, right? Data is the difference between you getting emotional and them getting emotional, getting back to rationality and saying, hey, here's what's happening in the market. Hey, rates have done this. This many homes have come on. This few have sold. Let's have a conversation. The market is dynamic. I wouldn't ask you to buy Enron stock for the same price you would have in 2004. Markets change. Let's adjust to it and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So that's the sum up. Not bad on time, 5 minutes. Any other kind of final comments or thought?
One other thing I do is every either pre-listing or once it's even live, I set up a search in the RMLS for myself and I just categorize it anything around Iris. And so that way then anything that moves, I immediately get notified and then I can also immediately reach out to them. Just another touch to be like, if you didn't see this just came on or pending, just sold, and I can give all those details.
Love it. One thing that you can do, I just thought of this, I've never done it, probably a dumb idea. Things come to my mind. Through Cloud CMA, it is dynamic. So what you could do is create a second CMA that had only the active properties that you're competing with at the time that property lists as an owned CMA. And if you clicked in and looked at that graph, you would see if anything had turned to withdrawn or turned pending. It's basically looking at the class that was inducted with you to the market. And you could go in and see this is moved, this is not moved, and you can do that with one quick click to the data. I haven't done it, but I might try to kind of decent idea, I think. So
Pop in on it.
yeah, pop in on it and say, because then you're saying, you know, it often when you really get a seller who gets mad at you, it's when something that is similar priced, similar vintage, similar looking, listed before you and goes pending before, right? That's the challenge. So at least you can track that stuff that's in the same point of the river flowing down. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for having a little different morning meeting today, but I think helpful and hopefully timely with the market. Buyer asked me this morning, what do you think is going to happen? I said, I think we're starting to get into the spring market. I still think, tell me if I'm wrong, we'll talk in September, but I still think we're going to enter a very, very busy summer. Despite all the uncertainty out, sometimes real estate is the value hub in those times. If you look at the last recession and what real estate prices have done, in almost all of them, prices have gone up, not down, except for the Great Recession and 1% flip in the 2000-2001 recession. So go out there, let us know how we can help, and thank you all for being here this morning. Hey, talk to you soon. I'm gonna get delivered in the middle of a.
You are.
Oh, yeah, first one was like